Welcome to this channel. This channel is for educations and culture based on historical and scientific evidence. So yesterday I shared a video which using this bell to check or to test on whether one can get the very basic of proper Wing Chun stance. Now, after I share this video, many of our Wing Chun friends around the world messaging me, asking me to help because their stance cannot do what I share here. And the stance they describe for me is you have range from tucking tailbones, clamping knees to Tai Chi internal type of stance. But they cannot get the 360-degree breathing. In fact, their breathing either stuck in the chest level or even they call their stuff like a Tai Chi or something. It is pressurized front here and they will not be able to really effortlessly doing the 360-degree. So this is a problem. Actually, it is a big problem. It is a disaster because now many of our friends, I should say a lot of our friends who give it a try now know what they trained for past many decades cannot do the job. So today I'd like to share with you in details what one need to really careful into when one dealing with practice Wing Chun. See, if one practice Wing Chun just for a ritual, a Chinese ritual, or Chinese philosophy, or just have fun, well, that is very different than you practice Wing Chun. Really, you want to get the result in health or for fighting. Those are different stuff. So for those who really practice Wing Chun, want to get result for their health and for the martial art parts, you need to know what I'm going to share with you here, because this is not a joke. And this is plain technical that every Wing Chuner must know. Okay. Now let's start with one thing. Let's start with this Xi Xiaodong's video. In this video, this Xi Xiaodong's video, he actually described the problem of Wing Chun in past 140 years. So because of these descriptions of Wing Chun in this video, the problem must be solved, or else this is in the history. That's one thing. The second thing is the serious Wing Chuners will continue getting into problem that it never be able to correct and never be able to improve. So in past 140 years of Wing Chun, the problem is surfaced in this YouTube. Unless we solve that problem, we are not going to be able to face people like Xi Xiaodong. Let's not kid about ourselves. We do not want to kid ourselves. Okay? And to rectify this, to defend Wing Chun, to champion Wing Chun, you don't need to go fight Xi Xiaodong because it's nothing personal. What needs to be done is to let all Wing Chuners who is serious have the proper educations. If Wing Chuners who is serious in Wing Chun have the proper educations, then by natural, automatically, what Xi Xiaodong present here do not continue on and it no longer exists. So you dissolve it by education. You don't dissolve it by you go challenge Xi Xiaodong. It doesn't prove anything. You want to dissolve it by educate everybody. So the entire thing changed. Now, in the past 140 years, Wing Chun have missing core element. Missing really important core element. So if you look at the 1850s writing of the Xiu Lim Tao, which is now translated in this book, for past 140 years, the teaching of Xiu Lim Tao from the first writing to the fifth writing is lost. It is not there in past 140 years. And that end up with a lot of interpretations. Everybody like to have their ideas of interpretation and this and that. But they never develop this. Because they never develop it, they don't know. And that's why Wing Chun get into the hand techniques, putting all the weight into the hand techniques. And as for what is in this first 5 teaching, it was never presented, and it turned into my opinion on I need to straighten my spine, my opinion on I need to stand in clamping knees, or my opinion on I need to tucking my tailbone, or my opinion on what I need to lifting my anus, or my opinion on Wing Chun have this something called mind power. Disregard of all of this for past 140 years, it never covered this thing. And even in the past few decades, when people try to bring in, say, Tai Chi or all this internal, still they do not cover this. So if you develop this, if you have developed this, okay, in here you say that it be able to sing Qi to Dantian. And this is the Wing Chun writing. This is not Tai Chi, okay? So we want to get Tai Chi out of here. This is Wing Chun, not talking Tai Chi or whatever internal, okay? If you really develop this, okay? In today's sports science, you know what is that? It is simply this. Core stability, the centerpiece of any training program. Core strengthening and stability exercise have become key components of training programs for athletes of all levels. Core muscle act as a bridge between upper and lower limbs, and force is transferred from core, often called a powerhouse, to limb. All of this thing. The core stability. And guess what? Core stability and the core strength is based on this. Diaphragmatic breathing, the foundations of core stability. So here, many fitness and rehabilitation experts would agree that diaphragmatic breathing is the most fundamental demonstrations of core functions. So, this is science, right? This is science, right? People do research, this is science. That is, to a minimum, the descriptions of these 5. Xing Qi to Dantian, union in Dantian, that is the breathing and the core stability. So with the sports science today, we know that the ancients is right. The Wing Chun ancestor in 1850 is right. You need to first develop the core stability and of course your breathing, proper breathing, which is the 360-degree type of breathing to support that core stability and core strength. Now, there's the bottom line. If you don't have this core stability and this breathing, which is together with it, forget about movement. Forget about one even can move oneself. However, you look at in the past 140 years until today, you talk about lifting anus, straighten the spine, mind power. You need to add in some kind of Tai Chi internal. You need to have structure, but you never talk about core stability, core strength, and the breathing, which is a must for it. So because of you don't have core stability, you don't have core strength, you end up as what Xi Xiaodong put it here. You end up what Xi Xiaodong said. So it is not this. So now that's why it is so critical now that this first 5 has to be reinstalled into Wing Chun, or else there is no Wing Chun. Imagine that you are talking about a martial arts in today's world where you do not have the understanding or the training of core stability and the diaphragmatic breathing, which is the foundations of the core stability and core strength. You don't have anything. You don't have base. We can continue on to your opinion, my opinion, my grandmaster say this, my lineage say this. You have 140 years of those type of argument until today, but you're missing this core stability and core strength with the foundations of breathing. So you don't have the system. You do not have a function martial arts. Today's sports science can prove that to you. And that's why Xi Xiaodong present it that way. And whether do one have that type of very, very, very basic of core stability and core strength and the breathing? It is just a simple using an elastic bandage, just really lightly wrap around one's lower abs before the under the navel, and you just use 30 seconds. You know right away. You stand there, whether you be able to breathe at that part 360 degree. You know whether you got it or not. So this is the core. If this is not reinstalled, you really don't have a solid Wing Chun. And as the ancient have already presented clearly there, and the modern sports science, modern science have presented to the world. As soon as you are human, you need that. So, one need to get back to this. One need to do this test and fix it. Reinstall the core stability, core strength, and the breathing inside the basic Wing Chun stance, even prior to the practice Yu Lin Tao. And that is simply we reinstall the first 5 lines of teaching back to Wing Chun. Or else, you know, there is no Wing Chun. Sure, people can say, well, you know, I can beat Xi Xiaodong. Well, anybody can beat Xi Xiaodong. That is his personal stuff. Now we are talking about you have the entire students of Wing Chun. Does all these people get the training, get the proper training to be able to do the job, the basic job, to help them so that they can move their body? Or are you playing at random stuff? Oh, this guy be able to beat Xi Xiaodong. Why did he beat Xi Xiaodong? Don't know. Or maybe he was born better and so forth, so forth. That is not the point. The point is all Wing Chunner must be able to have a stable core strength a strong core and be able to breathe if one want to play in martial art games. Okay. So that is the bottom line. Nobody can avoid it. And that's why there is no such thing as interpretations. What interpretations? 160 years ago, the ancestor already know core stability, core strength, and breathing, even though they don't call it that way. And 160 years later, we know this. In science, which is, it is presenting the same thing with different language and different terminology. That's the bottom line. And here you see, we don't even want to talk about the chi, the energy. We don't even want to talk about the energy. We just want to talk about the core stability and breathing. Can we do it? If we cannot do it, if the thing we train cannot do it, cannot lead us to be able to do it, that means the training is useless. Okay? This is important. Why is this important? Because this 5 with this and this have proven that Wing Chun, the real Wing Chun, is not what Xi Xiaodong present. And that's very important. It is not like Hendrik's idea, right? Or any lineage idea. It is not. This is ancient, and ancient. Now, what is it in the sports science today? And it has the component, and what Xi Xiaodong presents is not what this is. So if you want to champion Wing Chun, there's no need to go challenge and fight Xi Xiaodong. Just showing the ancients, the science. That's it. And of course, after this, the serious Wing Chuner have to reinstall this. Wing Chun is never just Tam Bong Fok. Never about structure or mind power. Without the core stability, core strength, and the breathing, one couldn't even move. So it doesn't matter you say this is Tan Da Lap Da or house techniques, this chi sao whatever, You can talk about all those stuff, but as soon as you do not have core strength, core stability, and the breathing, you cannot do the job. And you will be, as what Xi Xiaodong said, are you doing demonstrations? Are you doing fighting? And can you compete? So this is the reality. Okay? So that's why this is a test where many people are afraid to take. However, if one afraid to take this test, one will never progress. Because only after we know what we are, who we are, where we are, we can change and we can improve. Now, so we talk about the core stability and the core strength and the breathing. But in this book, it goes further than that. Besides showing this, it goes further. It shows how the physical body need to be handled. Okay, like here. The shoulder should be handled in a loose and floating manner, similar to an eagle spread its wing, ready to take off. A downward press or upward lift shoulder will cause breathing to be sluggish or not able to have natural lower abs breathing. This is due to an improper shoulder handling will cause an improper chest handling. So there are many things there in details. And if one have those, one be able to handle the low abs breathing. And of course, because you'll be able to handle the lower abs breathing 360 degrees, now you'll be able to handle the core to the minimum you can do for the health, because you have a health part and then you have the fighting part. Now, there are more things need to be watched out, because this breathing stuff influence your body performance, your heart rate, and so forth. So that's why in this book, it get into the scientific, because we need to track, for example, our resting heart rate. Our resting heart rate. Say from here is the 1 month of resting heart rate to see how this resting heart rate is. If the resting heart rate is go high or something, that day one might not, or one do not want to do sparring or high intensity training, because one's body is not rest enough. Okay, so one need to track that type of stuff. So if you look at that, your core stability, core strength, and your breathing, that is for the minimum one need to train, so that one be able even to move properly. Otherwise, if you one never train that, one will not be able to move properly. Okay. Now, if one do not have a good health conditions at that particular day, even one with the training, one is not going to be able to handle high intensity activity. So one need to check one's training. Okay. Now, and as this in the nurture chi, where the recovery of Wing Chun and so forth, one, by looking at how when one do the nurture chi practice, like in this book, which is the first in the first 5 lines I just shared with you on the breathing, handling, and so forth. By checking the heart rate, one be able to know, is that day a good day where one can drop one's heart rate right? This is from 80 right away going down within say 1 minute, it dropped down, or it is the day where one is exhausted or one is sick, where it start with a 90 and it spends so much time, 10 minutes or 12 minutes, it couldn't even going down to 80. At this time, no sparring, no fighting, no high intensity training. Okay, so that's why for the first 5, this first five, one can use it for develop the core stability, core strength, and the breathing. One can use that, and which is using for for recovery, for nurture qi, and also one can use that to check out one's physiological status. When one do the same N1 training, in this book, I coined the name as N1 or nurture qi. N stand for nurture qi. N1 training. When one do the N1 training, if one is in a good shape, not overexert, not injury or anything, is be like this. Your heart rate 80, you're going to drop right away and you can stay low. Now, at that day when one is exhausted or sick or something like that, then you see it have a hard time even to going towards the 80 range. Okay. So if you look at the percentage, this is 100% of the maximum heart rate. This is very fast. From 50% heart rate, it dropped down to under 50, which is when the body is in a good condition. Now over here, when the body at that day is not as a good condition, is sick or is exhausted, overtrained or whatever, you can see that this is 100%. This training have a hard time to drop the heart rate from 60% to around 50% in, say, here about 13, 14 minutes. While this one, you can drop down to, say, 40% in 1 minute. So one need to know this. One need to know this training and one need to know this. Or else one is running a risk. So like this one, you see, the resting heart rate. Now, this is like the March 2nd, and for these few days is okay. But now you see the resting heart rate or sleeping heart rate. When you go up like that, it stay up like that, you know that the body is not in a really fit conditions. Same thing over here. So at this case, you can see that if you practice the N1 process, you're going down, okay, the heart rate going down, and then you can go up here and then it can coming down. And here, the respiratory rate stay at average of 8. You can go down to 6 and maximum of 14. It can go always up and down and so forth in the training. But when you get something like that, and average of 71, maximum 79, and this is the breathing rate is 12, 16 instead of 8, 14. Instead, you see this, you can go 87, but you're going to drop to 67. You know, at this day, you don't want to go high intensity training. You don't want to do sparring. You don't want to do anaerobic stuff. Now, if we don't have this track, all this, we really don't know what we are doing. So without all this tracking, we really don't know, are we capable to help our health? Are we ready to do the sparring, for example? Can we handle the sparring? If a person's heart rate is keeping like this, have a hard time to go down from 60% of the maximum heart rate to 50%, then you know that this guy should not go train sparring. And so it has to go scientific. That's why in this book, the ancient stuff is now mapped into science. So we know exactly what we are doing. Are we working with our health? Are we working for the training, like for the sparring? Is that day good for us to do sparring? is that day good for us to do high intensity training? Or if we start with this, our heart rate, even at the nurture chi for recovery, it is just have a tough time to go down from 50 to 60 to 50. Now, we need to do more than. See, look at this. From 60 to 50. Okay, you see that it going up to about 16 minutes, and then it going suddenly going down. It still pops up a little bit, but it going down, going down to the 40, right? So if you look at this, you know the recovery or N1 process training is not enough. That's why I cannot go down there. And when you prolong the time, you see it get down. And of course, there will be a question say that, okay, so what if I prolong the time, but I still cannot get down? Well, then one need to keeping doing this, say with the 13 minutes, 13 minutes, 13 minutes. Say one day you do 3 times, 4 times, and you will see the improve. And then suddenly you'll be able to do, when you progress, you'll be able to do longer time and it can going down. And it's stable out. And then after a while, one will get into this when one get fully healthy. Okay. So now with this, there's no more interpretations. There is no interpretations. So with that, we follow the ancient. The ancient teaching is first, before you do your Xiu Lim Tao or anything or whatever, one need to develop the core stability, core strength, and the natural lower abs breathing to be very basic, as what I share in that using the belt for testing, to checking one's status video. We don't want to get any advanced, but at least one aware of that core, aware of that breathing. That is the very bottom. And then on top of that, one can get into, oh yeah, then we're going to develop like the nurture chi, like I shared with you just now, you know, where you can drop your heart rate and so forth, your breathing rate and so forth. And then one can go from there to the martial art for the sparring, for the high intensity training. And then if one figure out or one find out that one's physical conditions in the heart rate and breathing rate is not coming down, or the sleeping, resting rate is not coming down, then one know that it's better to get into the health, the recovery part of training, not going to go to fighting training, because it's going to kill you, okay? You're going to create all kind of problem, because you are, in today's world, it's like overtraining. Now, if you don't have those type of training, how are we going to develop anything? We talk about spine, straighten the spine, lifting the anus. What is that got to do with your core stability and your breathing? You talk about mind power. What is that got to do with the core stability and the breathing? You talk about hand techniques. Serious? Without the handling of the core stability and core strength and the breathing, what is this hand techniques going to do for you in the high speed, high intensity, like you met somebody like Xi Xiaodong? So This is technically we know now today, based on ancient and science, that the past 140 years of Wing Chun is having a big disaster of do not have this core, very basic training. Without this basic training, you know that all the set is useless. Without this core and breathing training, you know that all those chi sao is useless. In fighting, it is useless. When I say useless, I say that I mean that it is a system. It's not somebody say, oh, you know, I still can fight good. I can beat you. It got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with, can everybody develop the Kung Fu or Wing Chun in an effective, efficient, and quality way? It is not like, oh, I'm the best fighter. But look at your student. What can your student do? Or the student have no clue at all, completely with the core, the breathing, and so forth. What if the Sifu is a very good fighter? Sure, he can be a good fighter. You know, there are a lot of born talented street fighter. But does he know why he is good in fighting? What if you look at Xi Xiaodong? This MMA, and MMA, like in the Western sports science, they know this. They know this. So imagine you are having a group of people who have no idea on this. Try to fight the group of people who is trained scientifically with this. What do you think the outcome will be? So that's why all those, my interpretations, my Sifu is so and so, my lineage is so and so, this is internal, this is Chinese magic internal. Forget about it. Why? Because after 140 years, why is the problem of the core stability, core strength, and breathing does not get figured out? Well, the Western sports science already figured out. And Xi Xiaodong pointed out already. Not to mention, why is what is there in Wing Chun 160 years ago is now completely missing? So it is not the time to blame, to look back and this and that. It is the time to do the test, to fix it, to bring whatever the teaching of the 160 years ago back, to bring the scientific back. Only that way, the training of Wing Chun have meaning. Otherwise, it is not a meaningful thing. It is just based on somebody's opinion, and which is not scientific at all. So like today, you look at that. Core stability, core strength, and your lower abs breathing. Tell me, does mind power got to do with all this, what needed to be done? Does straightened spine be like Tai Chi, have Chi, clamping your knee, having your structure, develop that core stability, core strength, and your lower abs breathing, which is you need in today's, like in Olympic judo, Olympic karate, and so forth, or Olympic boxing. So this is what I'd like to share with you today. It is your freedom to live in the world I just described, or you want to live in some world like in a movie. everybody is free to do what they want. But for Wing Chuners who really want to get something out from their training in terms of health and in terms of martial art, we know 160 years ago that teaching and today's sports science teaching, they are in the same directions. Unless we get there, we will not be able to get result, and we will not be able to face up to the challenge of the today's sport martial arts.